So you might be wondering my thoughts on the trade deadline. And if you're not, I'm going to tell you anyway. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, Brian Talks Baseball, where I'm Brian and we talk about baseball. If you're new around here, do me a favor, barrel up that subscribe button. And I make videos centered around sabermetrics as well as social and political issues as they impact Major League Baseball. So the trade deadline came and went. I'm about a day late on making this video, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about who I think are some of the winners and losers of the trade deadline. A lot of teams were super busy. A lot of teams didn't do anything. I think that the demand far outweighed the supply, so I think that was part of it too. So let's start with the winners. So I got 5 teams who I think really did well. Number 5, I'm going to go with the Cubs. Now, they didn't make any blockbuster moves. They made a couple of minor moves to kind of bolster the bullpen. Josh Osich, Andrew Chafin, they bolstered the bench a little bit, brought in Cameron Maybin from the Tigers, Jose Martinez from the Rays. Again, like, these guys aren't superstars, but these are small, quiet moves that make them incrementally better, and they make them a little bit more deep. Cameron Maybin had a really good year last year. Hasn't gone off to a great start this year, but I think he'll be a little bit better. Jose Martinez is not great, not a good defender, but he's still going to hit left-handed pitching, and for the rest of the season, why wouldn't you want that? These are just those small moves that just make them a little bit better, especially since the Cardinals and Brewers didn't really do anything. The Reds did make a couple of moves, but nothing like super major. So I think, at least in the NL Central, the Cubs walk away the big winner in that division. Number 4, I really like the moves that the Toronto Blue Jays made. I'm not going to rank them any higher than 4th because I think that they're betting on the upside for most of the guys that they got. Jonathan VR, he's essentially a league average guy who can back you up at every infield position. He's got some pop. He's going to hit you some home runs. Taijuan Walker is a guy who has electric stuff. You wonder why he doesn't miss more bats. So I think the Blue Jays are kind of counting on maybe helping him with that. Robbie Ray is a guy I really like. I've really liked for a long time. His velocity's been up this year. He's just been getting hammered this year. He's just giving up a ton of walks. So if the Blue Jays can fix that, I think those are 2 guys that can really make the rotation a lot better. Ross Stripling is another guy who I really like. For whatever reason, Ross Stripling isn't doing so hot this year. He's given up a ton of home runs, not striking out as many guys as last year. But again, I think the Blue Jays are kind of looking at the upside here. And if things can come together for all 3 of those guys, watch out for the Blue Jays because they're in the playoff picture right now. And I think that this is one of those surprise teams that actually isn't really a surprise. I think that they're pretty good. I think at worst, adding these 3 guys just gives them a little bit more depth and kind of the ability to kind of play around and maybe try some guys out in the bullpen. So even if only for that, I think the deals that the Blue Jays made make them a little bit better. Daniel Vogelbach is another guy that they brought in, just, some pop off the bench. Moving on to number 3, the Miami Marlins. Now, the Miami Marlins didn't make a ton of moves, but the fact that they went out and signed Starling Marte, I think is really exciting because, dare I say, I might be a believer in the Marlins. I think their pitching is really good. I think their offense is competent. And the addition of Starling Marte, I think, is at least a 2-win improvement over Lewis Brinson, who just hasn't been able to prove himself as a major league everyday center fielder. Starling Marte gives you that. And it's good to see the Marlins, 1, being competitive way ahead of schedule, and 2, going for it and getting Starling Marte. Now, whether they keep him after this season and pick up his option and trade him in the offseason or whatever, it remains to be seen. I don't care, honestly. I think this move is exciting for now, and that's why I'm putting them at the number 3 spot. Number 2, the San Diego Padres. Now, a lot of people are putting them as number 1. Now, granted, they did make a lot of moves. They made some good moves. I love that they added Mike Clevenger to go along with Chris Paddock and Dinelson Lamet, who I told you was the best pitcher that you don't know about. You know about him now, I bet. He's the dude's a stud. What else can you say? Some of the other moves I think were good but not great. I think are a little bit overrated. I like the acquisition of Trevor Rosenthal. They do have some guys in the bullpen who are struggling, namely Emilio Pagan. We know how volatile high leverage relievers can be. With a guy like Trevor Rosenthal, yeah, you love to see a guy like him kind of bounce back and have a great year. What worries me is that he is still walking a ton of guys. That to me just makes him a possible regression candidate. Anything can happen, like I said, with these late inning high leverage relievers. They completely revamped their catching core, which is something like, is that something you want to do mid-season? That just seems strange to me. Like, that's the thing that you're going to completely turn over as your catching core. Number 1, I'm going to go with Cleveland here. Namely, they made that big trade with the San Diego Padres when they dealt Mike Clevenger. I actually like this trade a lot better for Cleveland than I do the Padres. And here's a couple reasons why. I know you might think that, hey, they traded one of their best starting pitchers. Well, they already had the best pitching staff in baseball with the emergence of Zach Plesac this year. Aaron Savalas had a great year so far. The emergence of Tristan McKenzie. Not to say that Clevenger was expendable per se, but I think it gives those guys a chance to kind of slide up. And yeah, Cal Quantrill's not better than Mike Clevenger. He's not going to be. He just slides into the back of the rotation, or they can put him in the bullpen. So there's a lot of things they can do there. It gives them a little bit more flexibility. The next thing I like about that trade is getting Josh Naylor. I just think that there was not a path to playing time for Josh Naylor in San Diego. I think he's going to get that with Cleveland. He hasn't done well in a small sample in the major league so far. Just like with Quantrill, that's okay. Like, they don't need Josh Naylor to be great. They have a collective 51 WRC plus as an outfield core. That's the second worst in the major leagues. So if Josh Naylor comes over and he's just a league average hitter and a league average defender, that's so much better than what they have now. So you kind of have to look at it from that standpoint. Austin Hedges, he's going to complement Roberto Perez well. Yeah, can't hit, but he's still one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, and that's important. What I think this trade was really for was Gabriel Arias, who was the number 16 prospect for the San Diego Padres, 19 years old, absolutely raked in high A last year. He's going to go into next season probably as one of the top 100 prospects in baseball. That part of the trade, I think, is what makes the difference for me and why this trade is actually a win for the Indians and less for the Padres. Now for the losers. Number 5, I'm going with the Dodgers, and I'm putting them as number 5 because they didn't really need to do anything. This team, we know this team isn't great. It's really hard to nitpick and find holes, but I really thought that they were going to get Lance Lynn. I thought that they were going to do something. I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't, but again, I'm putting them as number 5 and not anything higher because they didn't really need to do anything. I'm not worried about them. They're still the best team in the National League by a pretty fair margin. Number 4, I'm going with the Minnesota Twins. If you watched my 2020 predictions video, I specifically called out the Twins as a team that was primed for regression this year, and that's exactly what happened. I did not think their offense last year was as good as it was. Coming in looking at this year so far, they're basically a league average offense. Do I think it's a league average offense? No, but I don't think it's as good as last year, and that's kind of what's happened. The reason why they're even in the playoff picture right now is because they've been floated by their pitching, which kind of scares me. I don't think their pitching is actually as good as it has been so far this year. So again, I thought that they would try and at least bolster the pitching. Even if you think that their offense is going to get better, I still would have liked to see them do something a little bit on the pitching side. Number 3, I'm going with the Houston Astros. Again, the Houston Astros are another team that's probably going to be fine. The A's are ahead of them in the division by quite a bit. They got off to a terrible start. They got some guys who aren't hitting yet, but this team is going to hit. This team is going to pitch well. Their pitching is a little thin. I would have liked to see them at least acquire some depth on the pitching side, not necessarily, somebody, in a blockbuster trade, but not a guy like Zach Greinke or, the Justin Verlander of this year. I would have liked to have seen them do something just to kind of get some depth, and they just didn't do that. Again, they're another team. I think that they're going to be fine. I don't think they're the best team in the American League anymore, but they're probably still a top 3 or 4 team. So again, I think they're going to be fine. Number 2, I'm going with the Yankees. This team is just battered and bruised, and they're just one of those teams that you expect them to do something every year. They stay pretty quiet. As of the time of recording this video, 4.5 games behind the Rays, and especially with the Rays not doing much, the Yankees really had an opportunity to do something big. I think when they get healthier, I think they'll start winning games again. I think they have some guys who should be playing better than they are. Number 1 biggest loser of the trade deadline, I'm going with the Chicago White Sox. They're in first place in the Central. They're an exciting team. I love watching them, but this team is primed for a second half regression. I'll get into that in a later video, but this team is they're not as good as the record shows. I would have liked to see them do something to at least make their offense a little bit better. Yeah, they have one of the best offenses in baseball, but it's floated by a really high team BABIP. This is a team that strikes out a lot, doesn't walk very much. So for that reason, I think that they're going to regress a little bit in the second half. I would have liked to see them add somebody who can get on base a little bit more. I think that some of their starting pitchers are going to regress a little bit in the second half too. I would have liked to see them add at least a little bit of depth. The White Sox didn't really do much. They acquired Gerard Dyson, but So that's really it. Hope you like this video about my winners and losers of the 2020 MLB trade deadline. Again, if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be getting back to making more videos with more baseball center commentary focused on sabermetrics. This is just the first in a couple I have planned, but not to say that I'm going to shy away from the social and political issues as they happen. That's going to be more of a current events thing that I'll cover on this channel. But anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. I know this is a little bit longer of a video, but there's a lot to talk about. So yeah, I'll see you next time, guys. Later.